This road trip has been made possible by Tourism New Zealand.
I'm Priya. I'm 22 years old. I went to the University of Pittsburgh. I recently graduated.
I'm Jeremy. I'm 22. I just graduated from the University of Pittsburgh along with Priya. I've never been out of the country, so I have a brand new passport I can't wait to try out.
I don't know what I want to do. I was a math and philosophy major in college, and a lot of older, rational people are kind of like, great, what are you going to do with that? And I'm like, nothing, actually. But I think this trip will hopefully show me what I do and I don't want to do.
I'm really excited to talk to Bryan Crump. He is the evening show host at Radio New Zealand National. It's kind of like their NPR station there.
Easing tomorrow. News and weather again at 9.
Nights on Radio New Zealand National, 24 minutes past 7.
Coming up after the news, a couple of American road trippers.
My obvious first question is a simple one of just how did you get to where you are now?
It probably begins when I was a kid, and I was fascinated with sound, and I've always been making noises, getting out pots and pans and banging them and things like that. And then one of my brothers got a tape recorder, and I got hold of it, and in the space of about, I think, 2 or 3 months, I just completely did it to death. I ruined it. I wanted to record everything. I'd get up in the morning, open the window, and I'd record the sound of the dawn chorus. I'd get my friends around and I'd record them. And I was just amazed by the sounds. And after a few months, the tape recorder was dead. And by that stage, I started writing radio dramas for my friends to perform. We did that kind of stuff, and then that tape recorder died, and then I went to school. I didn't really think much about a career for years. And I became a journalist. I started doing stuff on student radio, doing radio shows and things like that. But in 1988, after the share market crashed, New Zealand was in a bad way. The only way to get a job was to prove to somebody I could do it. Mm-hmm. So the best way was to get a tape recorder and go out and interview people and do it myself.
So obviously you sort of took matters into your own hands rather than going to school for like radio production, music production, something like that.
Well, there wasn't really much radio production available. I thought the best thing to do was to get a journalism degree and then go to radio that way. And I had said to myself, if I didn't get into radio, I wasn't happy as a journalist in print. I couldn't spell. And we didn't have spell check back then. I think for a while I thought, well, I can't get a job because there's no jobs. And then I realised, well, I can still do this because the ideas are in my head and I don't need to have a job to do them.
What would you advise people our age just generally, whether it be in broadcasting or something completely unrelated to broadcasting, to do at our age?
Well, do you know where you want to go?
No, I don't.
You don't? You do.
Right.
Well, that's one thing. I didn't know that I was going to end up in radio until I was in my mid-20s. I got my first professional radio job at the age of 27. For me, what drew me back to radio was I knew that I got a lot out of sound, and I knew that had always been there in my life, right from when I was a kid. So to some extent, what guided me was my own knowledge of what, as a child, had naturally interested me. Before I started to be influenced by peer pressure or by pressure from parents or teachers to get a job, before any of that, I knew that I picked up a tape recorder and played with it, not because somebody told me to, not because somebody said radio's a great career. It just fascinated me. And I listened to music because it fascinated me as well as a child. I would play my dad's classical records and wreck them. I wrecked those as well as tape recorders. I was a terrible child. I was a precocious, spoilt little kid brother. But all those things were things I did naturally. So if you don't know what you want to do, I'd say one thing is to ask yourself what, as a child, you really responded to, what stimulated you. Because all that stuff generally happens before all that other stuff about how am I going to make a living? What am I going to do to please my parents? What am I going to do to please my peers? What am I going to do that's funky? Before any of that stuff comes in. Because I don't think we worry about that stuff so much when we're a child. And in terms of if you do know what you want to do, well then you just go for it and get it. If people say, well, we're not going to let you become a radio broadcaster because you don't have any experience, well, bugger that. You just go and make radio.
The things that Bryan had to say about your childhood, I did the same thing with tape recording radio shows, and then I had my action figures that I would just play out stories all day long, and that's the two things that I want to do now is make stories and play radio.
Yeah.
A lot of people would say, just follow what you like or follow what you want to do, like in your heart, but sometimes that even can be influenced by, maybe not your parents or your teachers, but by what's really cool or what you think will make you successful.
Yeah. I don't have direction. I mean, I think a lot of people have a lot of interest. But I mean, I'm not too concerned. I think things will present itself to me. I think today was like the pinnacle of interviewing.
Jeremy and Priya, it's been great having you in the studio. Good luck with the rest of your road trip through New Zealand.
God.